Hello, my name is Joel Flores. I'm the Recovery Plug, and welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I like to always get my videos started with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer for the addicts who still suffer. If you would, please, a moment of silence. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, I always get my videos, I always go to different spots around town and do the podcast. So today I picked the little outside courtyard off the Riverwalk by the Tobin Center. So I thought it was a cool background because it got this whole big old screen out there, and the building that's back here, it's pretty cool, and the scenery's nice. So there's not a whole lot of outside noise, if you will, to kind of distort the sound and that sort of thing. So I try to keep that in mind, even though there's other places that I've done podcasts that had some serious noise issues, but I just enjoyed the background. That's why I chose them. But and at any rate, let's get started with today's session. I was in a meeting earlier this morning, and as you all know, I'm an addict, and my drug of choice this time around in my addiction was methamphetamine, and I've been addicted to other things before. At one point in my life it was alcohol, another point in my life it was cocaine, and the last relapse that I had was a 5-year relapse, and that was due to the methamphetamine. So it was a long relapse, the longest relapse I ever had, and definitely don't want to go back to doing that. But there was a handout that they gave us today at the meeting that I was at, and it's the principles and virtues from a 12-step program, and in this case it was an Alcoholic Anonymous program handout, and I attend those types of meetings sometimes, but it doesn't mean that you have to be an alcoholic addict to go to them, because it's not. And just I attend these meetings because every type of different meeting that I attend kind of gives me a different perspective and how to deal with my recovery in my life, because I'm not only addicted to one thing. You know what I mean? For me, it's many different things, and I want to read you the first step here that it shows it, that it got here, and it says, "We admitted that we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable." And right under that it says, "Acceptance, admission of defeat, open-mindedness, willingness, humility." And when I read that, because that first step is also in the NA, Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and not worded necessarily like this, but it's pretty similar. And nonetheless, both programs, and any 12-step program with that same first step, is always almost pretty much the same for any addiction. But what really stood out to me was the part that says admission of defeat, and that's to me saying, how I interpret that is that, hey, you know what, you failed. And for me, being a veteran, a Desert Storm veteran from the U.S. Navy, is that defeat for me is never, it's like not even in my vocabulary. You know what I mean? I mean, for me to sit there and read that was really kind of it in a sense bothered me, but I could understand how that works in the program. I mean, before I would have probably read that and just been like, you know, you got me effed up. I mean, defeat, negative. I'm not getting defeated in no way, shape, or form. But you know, being in addiction and recovery, both for a pretty long, you know, periods of time for both sides, you know, because I've been an addict and in the addiction world for quite a while, and I also been sober at times in my life for quite a while. You know, long periods, like, you know, my longest year of sobriety was like 10 years, 9 to 10 years, something like that. And so I understand the disease from both sides, if you will. And when I read that, I was like, wow, I wish that I could have understood that that first, you know, step in more in depth a long time ago, like when I first got introduced to a 12-step program, which was back in 1987. I mean, I got introduced when I was in the military to this 12-step program because as soon as I got to my duty station, I screwed up. And I screwed up because I was drunk. And I wind up getting into a fight and messing somebody's car up and taking it. And you know, it was not only that, but beating somebody up. And, you know, at an early age like that, I'm not thinking that I have a disease. That's like the furthest thing from my mind. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just, you know, thinking like, okay, fuck, I effed up, and you know, what am I gonna do? But suffer the consequences. And in that particular case, it was going to a correctional facility unit for a few months, and you know, because of alcohol. So part of when I got out of the program, out of that correctional facility, and got sent back to my ship, I had to attend these 12-step AA meetings, and so that was my first time being introduced to a 12-step program, and I didn't understand it, and I only attended because I had to, and it was something that I didn't forget. You know, sitting there in those meetings and then hearing people talk about their experiences and where it led them, and then reading literature that they gave us and that sort of thing. In 1987 is totally different from what it is today. And there, you know, back then it wasn't considered a disease. It was just, you know, you screwed up, dude, and there's got to be some sort of accountability. So this is it. And so I did what I had to do, and even, you know, the charges were pretty bad because, you know, doing things on a military installation, I mean, and beating people up, that is, you're charged with destruction of government property, and, you know, it can have a heavy penalty. And, you know, I was this close to spending 4 years that I signed up for at Kansas Leavenworth, and I was like, you know, when I got sent to this correctional facility, you know, I had a fight in there, and I could remember once I got to in front of the captain of the correctional facility, basically the warden, right? And he sat me down, and he's like, he tells me like this: why don't you sit down? He goes, I'm gonna tell you something, all military bullshit aside, this is what's happening. You either finish your time here, go back to your ship, and be a 4.0 sailor, or you got no choice but to, I got no choice but to send you to Kansas Leavenworth for 4 years that you signed up for, and guess what? Well, they still break rocks there. So what do you want to do? And well, naturally, my answer is like, man, I think I'll go back to my boat and do, I'll finish whatever I got to do here. So needless to say, I straightened out pretty quick. But my point is that had I not gone out and got hammered with alcohol, I wouldn't have never gotten to that situation. So going back to this handout is, I've been introduced to these programs since I was 18 years old, and just now am I literally seeing things clearly and understanding how that I have a disease, how my disease works in my mind, and what it makes me do, and what the consequences are. And I wish I had known what I know now a whole lot sooner, because number one, I wouldn't have lost the things that I lost. I wouldn't have, maybe been as sick as I thought as I am, and that sort of thing. But what I do know is that because of all this experience that I have in both recovery and sobriety and in the addiction, is that the mind is able to change. You're able to change the concept of how you think to stay in a positive realm that will better and further your life, and to make you think totally different. And it is it's amazing how the mind works if you feed the mind exactly what it needs in a healthy sense. And you can, if you're not, how this thing says here, if you're not accepting the fact that you have a disease, if you're not admitting that you've been defeated, if you're not open-minded to changing, and if you're not willing to change, and if you don't have the humility to seek that thing from inside, if you're not willing to do all of those things, you're going to be like this hamster in the wheel type thing. And you're going to be going and going and going and going and going, and it's going to get you nowhere. And just like, I always bring this up a lot because I really like the way this guy throws this message out there as a fellow that I know from a meeting over at Lifetime Recovery Alumni. And he always says, if you do nothing, then guess what? Nothing happens. And that is so true in the world of addiction and recovery, because you can think and go through these scenarios all you want, and just call out to your higher power and call out to whoever the heck you want to call out to, and say these things that you want to change, and you want to do this and you want to do that, and this you can say it a million times, but after the millionth time, you're still going to be in the same spot from when you said it the first time, without any action. So that's the key thing, is that you have to be open-minded, you have to be truthful and willing to take that first step, to take those actions, because being sober and being in recovery and being in the positive realm, it's not for the lazy people. I mean, I could tell you that right now. If it was, then everybody would be there, you know what I mean? But it's work. I mean, you have to put in the work to get to that point. And it's just the same thing as when you didn't just, one day wound up, addicted to whatever it is that you're addicted to. That it just didn't happen overnight. I mean, you continuously, repetitively did it and did it and did it and did it and did it until it just became uncontrollable and unmanageable, and you're in that dark, deep, dark despair that you don't know how the heck to get out of it anymore because you feel like the walls have caved in on you and it's dark and you're isolated and you can't see now. All you see is just the smoke. And when the smoke clears for you is when you start realizing things little by little, just the way little by little your life is getting just tore down little by little when you're in your disease and your addiction. And it's the same way with getting out. It's just going to happen little bit by little bit, one step at a time, put one foot in front of the other. You will get to that ladder and you will climb out of there. I can guarantee you that. And I know this because I've done it. But don't be fooled that you can just stay there when you get there finally. Because in order to stay there, you have to maintain. There's got to be a preventative maintenance plan that you got to put into effect for you to stay there. And that means, it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, depending what you're addicted to and depending where you're at and the type of resources that are available to you. Everybody's level of recovery is different and how they get there and how long it takes them to get there. So just know that if you have to be really truthful and willing to do that change, because for me personally, it was leaving an environment that I was comfortable with. When anything came up in my mind that was bothersome as far as traumatic experience and that sort of thing, the first thing I did was go to my comfortable spot, my comfortability, and where was that? That was in my addiction. You know, if I didn't want to think about something's weighing heavy on me, and it just bothered the hell out of me. Instead of doing anything else, the first thing I thought about was picking up and using it. And I did. And it got me nowhere. Because at the end, when I wound up in jail and in an institution, just like the book tells you that's going to happen, you wind up in jail, institutions, or death. And for me, it was going to jail and then getting transferred to an institution. And, you know, by the grace of God, that happened to me. Why I was the one chosen for that, I have no idea, because I was deep in it. And it allowed me to start thinking different. And it allowed me to get my mind moving again in a healthy way. And my body moving again in a healthy way. And when that happens, then the smoke starts clearing for you. You know, you'll be amazed at how your brain functions when you start feeding yourself the right stuff. And when that happens, you know, I start getting clarity in my life. I start seeing, okay, I understand where I'm messing up. I understand where I need the improvement. I understand what I have to do to get that improvement. And I understand that it's not hard because, man, do I have days and nights that are just terrible. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do, but, you know, when you get enough of those days under your belt where you're not using, it becomes a little bit easier and a little bit easier for you to not necessarily, not that you're not going to crave those things or you know, have them days where you just want to go use, but what happens is that it allows your mind to recognize all those red flags. And that's the key to me, is recognizing those red flags and knowing how to interpret them and knowing what to do to remedy each single one of those, because they're different. You know, one feeling is gonna be different than another, and you know, depending on what your resources are and what you got around you and where you're putting yourself at and setting your boundaries is going to determine if you're going to continue on that path of positivity in the positive realm, or you're going to go down into this dark, you know, place. And it's, to me, it's amazing that I can recognize those things now, and I choose to do the things different. And the more I do those things on the daily, the easier it becomes for me to stay there and not deal with not go back in reverse and into an area that I know what the end result will be. And usually for me personally, it's, you know, using. And so I'm grateful that I'm sober today, that I'm, and doing these videos and this podcast is one of the things that I personally do in my recovery to stay in that realm, because this allows me to eat up a few hours of my day to do the videos and to, seek out a place where I'm going to do it, and then think, research my topic, and just, trying to think of what I'm going to say, and, all those things. And, it's not like I have this whole script that I do, because all of my videos and everything that I talk about is just of my personal experiences, and I just, whatever comes to my head, I say it, or whatever I'm feeling at that particular time or that particular day is what I'm elaborating on. So, I hope that my words and my topics are something that is able to help somebody else, just like it did me at one point or another. I heard somebody's story. I sat there in a meeting listening to some guy talking and spilling his guts out about his life and his addiction. And for me, one day in 2005, I sat there in a meeting listening to somebody who I was like, man, this dude, he's saying exactly how I feel, and he's mentioning things exactly like I've gone through them. And I'm thinking, man, has this guy been following me the whole time? And I'm like, why does this guy sound like he's talking about me? And but at the end of his story, I'm like, man, why is this guy? Why do we sound so similar? But why is he so bubbly and happy, and I'm not? And I can remember distinctly that day at that meeting, I was like, what? I want whatever this dude's got, because he seems like he's got it together, you know what I mean? And so I figured, what? I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna see if what he's doing, if I put that in my life and engage those things, where is it gonna lead me? And it led me 10 years of sobriety and happy. Those 10 years were probably the happiest times that I've ever been, and in my life, and it was great. But where I screwed up is that I wasn't aware. My mind was too caught up, in a sense, in something that I kind of just gradually, year after year, day after day, I started kind of just putting it in the back of my schedule. And then eventually I stopped going to meetings. Eventually I stopped going and sharing my story and listening to other people's story. And then little by little, I stopped going to my church, and I stopped involving myself in my faith-based community. So once I stopped those two things, I got complacent. And then I was just addicted to working out and doing my work. So I had my own business, and I spent all my time in the gym or at work. And one day, it just happened. And I got invited to, a friend of mine asked me if I could take him home. I did. And next thing you know, he's smoking. He's doing meth, and asked me if I wanted to hit. And I'm sitting there, and as addicts, you can talk yourself into anything. And I was a pro addict. I talked myself into doing that first hit like in a minute. In seconds. I was like, sure. And I'm thinking to myself, dude. And the whole time I'm looking at this goal coming at me in slow motion. The whole time I'm thinking to myself, dude, you're good. Don't worry about it. I'm thinking, you've been sober for 10 years, brother. What, you got this just one time. You go home, go back to the house, you can go to work tomorrow. You won't even think about this, But it's cool. Just reward yourself. 10 years is a long time, brother. Go on and take a hit. And I did, and I took a hit of that stuff every day after that for 5 years. Every single day for 5 years. Can you imagine that? That's how long my relapse was. It was a 5-year relapse. Every single morning when I woke up, I hit that ball. That's what I did. and it was like, I was, when I think about it, I'm like, "Man, really, dude, you're that stupid, you're that unmanageable." But when your disease is the one leading the way, I mean, you think that it's good. So, uh, I guess my point here is that understand that sobriety is work, and just in like your addiction, you had to work at it. Sobriety is work, but I'm sitting here today sober and happy. My mind's clear. My body feels good. I'm excited about it. You know what I mean? I'm excited this time around. I got things that I'm envisioning that I want to do, and where I want my sobriety to go, and that I want to bring people with me. And that's why I do these videos, so that I can share what I've gone through, how I got here, and I can only do my due diligence by giving away what I've experienced, and it's awesome to do that. And so if that's why I do the videos, because if there's somebody that I know, that I know for a fact that there's somebody just like me out there, and hopefully this message resonates with somebody that will get them to a meeting, will get them to that first step to say, hey, you know what, I do have a problem. I do want to help. I am open to doing something, and get that inner peace from within, because if nothing gets done, just like my buddy Greg says, then nothing happens. So I like to always give out my email. So if you would like to send me a message, or if you need some help, somebody who does, shoot me a message, and if I can help in any way, shape, or form, I will. And if I personally can, then I can direct you with some numbers and some other resources, places that have helped me in my journey. And I also like to always give out a few places places that I go to, and just so if you're in this city where I'm at, in San Antonio, Texas, then you can maybe go out and attend. And you got a lot of good people out here in the recovery community. So we got the Esperanza group down in the downtown west side area of San Antonio. We got the Goliad group in the southeast side of San Antonio. We got the Winners Club in the northwest end of town. And we got the Club 12 in the north central side of town. So, go out and check these people out, and they won't turn you away, and I guarantee you they'll show you love, and they'll get you in the right direction where you need to go, just like they did for me. And if nobody hasn't told you today that they care or that they love you, well, you know what? I care about what happens to you, and I love you guys, man. And I appreciate you watching my videos. If you would, please hit that like button, hit the bell, refer, share my podcast, and hopefully this helps somebody. So till next time, when the smoke clears, I'm the Recovery Plug. See you.